Hi everyone, it's Jody. Welcome to my channel, The Planner Pages Edit. Today I'm going to talk about my very first pen show experience, which was the Colorado Pen Show. The Colorado Pen Show was held in Denver, and it started on October 17th and lasted through the 19th. And this was my very first pen show ever, so it was a totally new experience. So first I'm going to do a quick video so you can all kind of get a feel for what the show looked like. I will say it was really difficult for me to get some really good shots for a variety of reasons, which I will go into shortly. But I think I got a good enough samples so that you can kind of get an idea of what it was like. And then I'm going to follow that up with some general thoughts on the show, and then a little show and tell of what I brought home with me. So let's get started. So I have absolutely nothing to compare this experience to, being that this was my very first pen show. In fact, I have never even gone to a trunk show. I need to do that. That's also on my bucket list. So my first impression is this was a small show. I wouldn't say it was underwhelmingly small. I think it was actually the perfect size for this market. And it was a great size for me as someone who's never been to a pen show before. It could probably get really overwhelmed easily. But, whereas I have seen some videos of pen shows where the show takes up an entire exhibition hall floor, this show took up a medium-sized ballroom at an Embassy Suites. Okay, I mean, it's Denver, right? It's not DC, it's not San Francisco or Chicago where they have those big, huge international pen shows. Although that would be fun to experience one day. But hey, we're represented. And to be honest, like I said, it was the perfect size for someone like me who has never been to a pen show before and could probably get really overwhelmed at one of those big exhibits. So my husband and I went on a Saturday morning, and it was crowded. Like, people showed up for this. And it was kind of interesting because I just have to go off topic a bit. My husband is from Washington, D.C., and I lived and worked in the area for about 10 years. That's where we met. So we both know a thing or two about being aggressive, which was weird because I grew up in Minnesota, and Minnesota and Washington, D.C., I think, are polar opposites when it comes to what is, I guess, acceptable behavior in social situations and public places. I'll just give you an example. So, like, in Minnesota, we're all patiently standing in line, and sometimes we're chatting with one another, even though we don't necessarily know one another, just into that small talk. Sometimes, though, we will know each other. And, that's how we stand in line. In Washington, D.C., they may stand in line, but they are super impatient and probably slightly annoyed, in a hurry, in a rush, right? They got stuff to do. And they're not necessarily chit-chatting with other folks in line. If they're talking to someone, it's probably someone on their cell phone, and you're probably going to hear the entire conversation. In my experience, Denver has been middle ground for those two extremes. I would say they're not as pushy as Mid-Atlanticers, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just an observation. I was a Mid-Atlanticer for a long time myself. My husband is one. You can tell by his driving. But we weren't as, polite and nice as Minnesota Midwesterners. Not here in Denver. But it's a healthy middle ground, I would say. But not at the Denver Pen Show. I think at the Denver Pen Show, it was gloves off. And don't you even think about standing between someone and their favorite pen vendor, because you're going to get some elbows, you're going to get pushed around. They'll stop and apologize. They're very polite about it, but people will have their eyes set on something and they will go to it, and you better not be in their way. So that was one reason why it was really hard for me to get any good video footage because there were so many people and they were like swarming around their favorite vendors and they were not necessarily making space for you. You kind of had to push and throw a few elbows. So I brought back some of those skills from living out east, and people didn't care. They were all doing the same thing. So I'm not exaggerating. That was kind of what it was like there. There were some very serious pen enthusiasts at the show, and that's what you want, right? So another thing I discovered from this experience is that the pen prices that you see at the show are not necessarily the same prices you'll see online. In fact, I think they were a little more expensive, and I didn't realize this until after the fact. But apparently, it is a common practice for vendors to up the price of their pens that they bring with them to the pen shows to help offset costs associated with participating in the show. And that makes sense, right? You've got to think about there's probably a registration fee just to participate in the show as a vendor. You've got staff that you need to pay to be there. A lot of these vendors are traveling from out of town, so you've got travel and accommodation costs. I get it. So you'll see that difference reflected in some of the pen prices. Not all of them, but some of them. So that's just a word of caution for anyone who's never gone to a pen show before. One thing to anticipate is the cost of pens that you see at the show may be higher than what you see for the exact same pen online. That is not to say you should not go to a show and you should not support these vendors. These shows are really fun experiences, especially if you are a fountain pen or pen enthusiast. And I think it's great to support vendors who are bringing these pens to you so you can see them, test them in person, handle them before buying them, which is something you don't get to do when you're shopping online. So before I move into the show and tell part of this video, I have just a little confession. And that is the show was not on my radar, which is really an embarrassing thing to admit as a stationery lover. It should have been on my radar, but it wasn't. For whatever reason, it just didn't get on my schedule. I never saw a lot of advertising for it. I stumbled upon an advertisement for it just by accident. And I saw it literally the day before the show was going to begin. So it was really by chance that I got to go to the show. I dragged my husband with me. He was a very good sport. But because this was so last minute, here's some realities about my experience. One, I didn't do any research on the vendors who were going to be there. Two, I was coming into the show with no strategy or plan whatsoever. And three, I literally walked through those doors with no pre-planned budget, which I would not recommend. Like no budget at all, no limits on what I was going to spend here. If I was going to spend anything, it was that impromptu of a visit. So did I get anything? Seriously, you don't have to ask that. Let me show you what I came home with. So this is the star of the show, at least for me. It's my very first Montegrappa fountain pen. And this is Montegrappa's limited edition pen called Tarvisium, and it's in the color Paradise Falls. Now, this beautiful piece is made of resin, and it features a stainless steel nib with an intricate honeycomb design. At least that's how it's been described. Hopefully the camera picks that up. And the nib, which is in a medium size, it offers a really smooth writing experience. Very smooth gliding when you write, and I'll demonstrate that in a bit. But I have since learned, I learned this at the show from the vendor I bought this from, that Montegrappa is Italy's oldest fountain pen company, but they are recently going to stop shipping products to vendors and independent suppliers. Apparently, they are going to now only exclusively sell their pens in their physical storefronts. So that is at least what the vendor told me. Don't know if that is true, but he said, I am purchasing this at a good time because soon these are going to become a little harder to get your hands on unless you live next to or near a physical Montegrappa storefront. So that's something to keep your eyes on if you're a Montegrappa fan or want to try one of their pens. But this was never on my radar, Montegrappa. Actually, I don't think I had ever heard of it before the pen show. But this color combination has been on my radar. I think the orange hints really remind me. They're kind of like burnt orange, orangish red. They remind me of fall, obviously. But this turquoise, it also is like a winter and summer color. So this could be like a really good year-round pen. And, one thing to note is when you buy a pen at a pen show, you can actually request what size nib goes into the pen you purchase. So I am usually a fine or extra fine fountain pen writer, but I actually this time opted to go for a medium-sized nib. I think I have a few pens with a medium, but not many. And I really wanted a medium nib because I want to experiment more with shimmers and inks that have noticeable shading. And that's really hard to capture those characteristics when you're writing or drawing with a fine or very fine nib. So obviously you'll see more of those characteristics with a broad stub or flex nib, but I have seen some really good results with medium nibs as well. So I thought I'd give it a try. And I'm glad I went this route because as I'll show you in a minute, there are some really cool inks that look really good with a medium nib. But I'm sure you're all wondering, how does this Montegrappa feel in the hand and how does it write? So as far as how it feels, it's perfect. I have a small hand. Okay, it probably looks huge on the screen, but my hands are small. And so when I have a fountain pen, the barrel can't be too big and the pen itself can't be too heavy or it's going to feel awkward to me. But this is a perfect fit. Now, as for writing, let me grab some paper. So as for writing with this, beautiful. Smooth, it just glides. Love it. So I'm pleased and it feels good in the hand. So one thing to also note about pen shows, in addition to selling pens, you will also be able to buy different papers, stickers, and inks. And so, of course, with this gorgeous new pen, I needed some gorgeous new ink, right? So, of course, I came home with a new box of ink. And let me just grab that so I can show you. Okay. See, this is why it's dangerous for me to go to these kind of shows without a budget and without time to plan how I'm going to spend my money, because then I just make impulse purchases like I did. But I also brought home with me this box of Diamine's Peacock Flare Shimmering Fountain Pen ink. And I thought this ink would go beautifully with the fountain pen. I mean, the colors obviously look good together. And I thought it just really was going to be a nice complement. So I'll do a little swatch so you can really see the pen in all its glory, so you can see the shimmering particles in the ink. But let's just do a quick swatch. So I have a notebook of Clairefontaine fountain pen paper. I've had it lying around for a few years now, just waiting for a good use. So I think we'll just do a little swatch of this Peacock Flare. So you can kind of see, hopefully you'll pick up some of the shimmering characteristics. We'll do a little Q-tip swatch. So you can definitely see at least Yeah, you can see it on camera too. Some of the shading characteristics, which is great. Let's see if you can get any of that shimmer. I might need to mix this up a little bit. Hang on one second. So when it comes to these shimmer inks, someone said somewhere the best way to really get this mixed up so you can get the shimmer moving to the top is to roll it side to side. Apparently, they don't recommend you shake it. I don't really know why. You might be able to shake it and be just fine. But a rolling motion is apparently really good for mixing it up and getting that shimmer distributed within the bottle so that you can get that into your pen. So I think I've got some in here. Let's see if you can get more of that shimmer effect. I can actually see it off camera, but I'm noticing it's not showing up very well on camera. Well, it's definitely there from my view. Let me see if I can get a good angle. All right, I think I might have to take a picture. For whatever reason, the video is not picking up that shimmer, but I am seeing it very well with my bare eyes. But anyways, love it. I think that was a good purchase. And that is what is also in the pen right now. So I can just do a writing sample as well. Definitely getting some shading with the pen too, which is what I wanted. So that basically summarizes my first pen show, the Colorado Pen Show. Would I go again? Yes, but I would be better at keeping this on my calendar instead of spontaneously showing up without planning my budget ahead of time. Not that I regret any of my purchases. But yeah, absolutely. Great experience. I actually did learn a lot from the vendors there as well. One other tip pertaining to the Colorado Pen Show in particular, if you see something you love, get it. Don't do what we did, which was we kind of got a little overwhelmed when we first got there and decided we'd just shop around and see what we liked. And then if we saw something we really wanted, we'd come back to that vendor to get it. Don't do that because things disappear quickly. My husband did that and lost out on a really neat, handsome Lamy pen that he loved. By the time he decided he wanted it after seeing numerous other vendors, that pen had already sold out. And we were only there for like an hour and a half, probably about an hour. So anyways, that's why I think it's important to come in with a plan, come in with a budget, and research your vendors in advance. Oh, see, look at now. Maybe, can you see the shimmer a little better now that's drying? Anyways, thank you for joining me today. And, it was fun to share with you all my first pen show experience. I hope to go to some more. I also hope to make it to a pen trunk show someday. There are a few of them that are done here in Denver. I've just never had a chance to do that. But until next time, everyone, thanks for joining and happy writing.